Live from downtown Detroit, home of WDIV and Click on Detroit, Local 4 News at noon starts now.
Down to the wire. A new poll shows a tight race in New Hampshire. Pete Buttigieg gaining ground on Bernie Sanders.
I respect Senator Sanders, but when I hear this message go out that you're either for a revolution or you got to be for the status quo, that's a vision of the country that doesn't have room for most of us.
And Joe Biden struggling in fourth.
I've lost a lot in my lifetime, like many of you have. Car accident took away my wife and daughter. I lost my son, Bo. But I'll be if I'm going to stand by and lose my country, too.
What we can expect with New Hampshire polls about to open. Despite measures, quarantine squads in China rounding up suspected patients as the coronavirus death toll soars, now surpassing the deadly SARS outbreak. Meantime, an Oakland County resident is being tested for the illness, and those results are in. We'll have those for you in just a moment. But first, 2 people are found dead inside of a home in Highland Park. What we are learning about the cause of their deaths. And that does top our news this noon. Thank you for joining us. We're told that both a 42-year-old man and a 68-year-old man were found dead. This is a map of the scene. The home is located on Massachusetts Street near Oakland and West Division. Jason Colthorpe is following this story for us now. And Jason, what have you been able to find out about what happened here?
You know, Rhonda, even when we pulled up to this house today, someone was here, the door was open, they were taking out some things. The scent of carbon monoxide was in the air. It was really strong. And the city isn't saying for sure that's what caused it, but we have confirmed that there was a generator running in this house and there wasn't heat. And I want to tell you what happened on Saturday. Basically, the girlfriend of one of the 2 men came by here, couldn't get an answer on the door. She called police. They came by, banged on the door. They couldn't get an answer. The girlfriend wanted them to force their way into the house to check on the men. But police, what they did was they called the landlord. The landlord told them he had been in contact with one of the men here. He said they were leaving because there was no heat, so they didn't break in the door. Fast forward one more day. They again did a wellness check. This time went inside this home here, and that's when they found both of the men. Neighbors in this area, obviously, pretty shocked by it.
I know they was running a generator, but to have it in the house was definitely shocking to me.
Now, we are trying to find out why there was no heat in this house. Was it because of faulty equipment in here, meaning something that the landlord wasn't doing, or was it simply because these men weren't paying? But we do know at least one of them was working. We're still trying to find out that part of the story, and we're waiting also for the city to identify these men. Rhonda, back to you.
And that neighbor is saying that he believes that the 2 had the generator inside of the house?
Yeah, the generator was in the house. It was actually in the basement on the basement stairs. They were running cords up to the 2nd floor. And on the 2nd floor is where they found these men, where those windows were. But it's not known whether they thought the fumes just wouldn't go that high or how long. But the neighbors told me they could clearly hear a generator, and it wasn't the first time they'd been running it. Rhonda.
Well, we have certainly heard many times that you should never have that generator inside of the house. So yeah, that is a very sad story. Jason, thank you. In Auburn Hills, police are looking to track down a suspected hit-and-run driver. It happened last Sunday on Bloomfield Village Boulevard. Investigators say that the Jeep should have damage on the passenger side of that front bumper, and police are looking for the vehicle on your screen right here. It's believed to be a dark-colored 4-door Jeep Wrangler, so anyone with information is asked to contact police. And this just in, an Oakland County resident tested negative for the coronavirus after traveling to China. Meantime, China is reporting staggering numbers. At least 908 people have now died from the coronavirus, and there's about 40,000 cases of the coronavirus, and it keeps accumulating every day. On Sunday alone, 97 people died, the highest daily death toll since this outbreak began. And as for the passengers on that cruise ship, Princess Cruises has announced that an additional 66 cases of the coronavirus have been confirmed on board of its ship, which is already in quarantine in a Japanese harbor. At least 24 Americans have tested positive. Here's Molly Hunter with more.
Overnight on the Diamond Princess, the number of positive coronavirus cases doubling.
We are definitely not safe on this ship, and we need to be evacuated while some of us are still healthy.
Not everyone on board has been tested.
The only test we've received has been one thermometer check a week ago for 30 seconds.
75-year-old Gay Corder tells us passengers are being asked to take their own temperatures 3 to 4 times a day. But Rebecca Frazier, now in the hospital for her 3rd day, says she never showed symptoms before testing positive.
They check my vitals very often throughout the day because I had a little bit of a temperature when I got here, but that's gone.
Over the weekend, the first American death, a 60-year-old in Wuhan. Today, a huge test. In China's biggest cities, deserted for the last few weeks, millions head back to work after the extended Lunar New Year. In Hong Kong, now a mandatory quarantine for all travelers from the mainland, and jail time threatened for those who evaded. But Gay Carter says the quarantine on board the Diamond Princess isn't working.
We all need to be tested, at least do the Americans on board. Our government needs to step up. It's time to come for us now.
Now, the WHO says not to pay too much attention to numbers. They may ebb and flow, kind of peter and spike, and we may not have seen the peak of it yet. Molly Hunter, NBC News, Hong Kong.
Those numbers certainly have our attention. It's a lot of people that have lost their lives to this. We do have some breaking news. Federal prosecutors are charging 4 Chinese intelligence officers with hacking the credit reporting giant Equifax after one of the largest data breaches in history. The Equifax breach, disclosed in 2017, exposed the sensitive financial records of nearly 150 million Americans and many other foreigners. Chinese spies have ramped up espionage-focused hacking in recent years. Well, let's take a look outside our door here and take a look at what we have happening here in downtown Detroit. And no snow falling for a change, because we saw our share of it all weekend long, Brandon.
5 days in a row, the 4th through the 9th. The 5th through the 9th of February, we had snow each day leading up to today. But in those 5 days, only 4 to 7 inches or so fell. So little bits with what could be a lot more later this week. Right now we have 30 Pontiac, 33 in Ann Arbor. It's 35 Grosse Ile, only 31 up in Lapeer. The winds are light out of the north, about 3 to 7 miles an hour, but it keeps our wind chills in the 20s, so make sure you dress for that as you're heading oot and aboot. Only middle 30s at best, so we may have already hit our high for the day today. And Rhonda, coming up, we will talk about a decent snowmaker coming our way in the middle of the week.
All right, Brandon, thank you. Meanwhile, just into our newsroom, Attorney General William Barr has confirmed that the Justice Department has begun vetting information from Ukraine obtained by President Trump's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani. It's all in regards to former Vice President Joe Biden and his son. Giuliani, you may remember, was deeply implicated in President Trump's effort to get Ukrainian officials to help his 2020 re-election bid, the matter of the heart of the impeachment trial. President Trump was impeached in that Democratic-led House after withholding military assistance, as well as White House meeting, while calling for Ukraine announcing investigations into potential 2020 rival Joe Biden and his son Hunter. The top Democrat in the U.S. Senate is calling for an investigation of last week's White House firings of 2 key witnesses in the House impeachment probe. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has written to the inspectors general of all government agencies to investigate White House retaliation against whistleblowers who report presidential misconduct. The letter was prompted by last week's firings of White House Security Council member Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman and Gordon Sondland, U.S. ambassador to the European Union. Schumer says that he wants to make sure government whistleblowers are protected from retaliation. Meanwhile, President Trump's fiscal 2021 plan, which has virtually no chance of getting through the democratically controlled House, was delivered to Congress this morning. The White House is proposing a $4.8 trillion election year budget that would slash major domestic and safety net programs, starting up at a stark contrast with President Trump's rivals as voting gets underway in the presidential primary. Democratic presidential candidates are stepping up their game in New Hampshire as we speak, all ahead of tomorrow's primary. It's the last day before the first in the nation primary, and candidates are hitting the ground hard, hoping to sway undecided voters. Alice Barr is in Manchester with a closer look at the race that's heating up.
Hi there.
In the final hours before the first in the nation primary, a shifting picture in New Hampshire. A new poll from the Boston Globe shows Bernie Sanders pulling ahead of Pete Buttigieg in second place and Amy Klobuchar surging into third after a strong debate performance.
After that debate, something switched, and we had done a lot of hard work to get there, but it just allowed the people of New Hampshire to see me in a different way.
Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren close behind in a make-or-break contest.
This is just getting started, and I've said that from the very, very beginning. And I feel confident about where we are.
Dream big, fight hard, and win.
While some push to make up ground, frontrunners are aiming to build momentum with a clean win after the contentious results from the Iowa caucus. Just last night, the Iowa Democratic Party officially gave Buttigieg the highest delegate count, but Sanders plans to contest a few precincts.
This is, I think, what winning feels like.
We have an unprecedented grassroots movement, which is what you need to defeat Trump.
Candidates crisscrossing the state today to sway undecided voters in an up-close and personal contest. This mother and son taking it all in as political tourists.
You bump into, as you know, up here, candidates on the street or in diners like this one. So I don't think there's any place else in the country where you can get as close to the candidates.
And with the candidates running close together, both in polls and proximity, anything can happen when voting begins tomorrow. Alice Barr, NBC News, Manchester, New Hampshire.
Be sure to stick with Local 4 and click on Detroit.com for the results of that New Hampshire primary tomorrow. As the numbers trickle in, we'll keep you updated on the outcome. Still to come, the trial begins for Kathy Claves, a former gymnastics coach, in trouble with the law in connection to the Larry Nassar probe. What is happening in court today. But first, the trial of disgraced movie producer Harvey Weinstein continues. A look at what we can expect to come out of the courtroom today.